Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
Joining me in studio, State Senator Ryan Pearson, who lost his number 2 post in a failed bid to take out number 1. Risky move.
It was.
Risky, failed move. Now, where does that leave you? Where are you parking? In Scituate these days? Where's your parking space?
We'll find out. I'm still technically the leader till the 7th of January, so that hasn't changed yet. But, I would say this. I think, Senate President Ruggiero and I have had a long relationship. I respect him tremendously. I know my colleagues do. I've known him for 12 years. He's been in the Senate for over 40 years. I have a lot of respect for him, but I also have a lot of respect for the institution. And my primary job is to represent my constituents and to make sure we can get the work done that we need to in the Rhode Island Senate. And unfortunately, I think the Senate President's absences have made the Senate weaker. Okay. And our colleagues are looking for an institution that can work on the issues that are important to Rhode Islanders.
You're a Democrat, Cumberland, Lincoln.
That's correct.
You've been there several terms now, and you rose up the leadership ranks. And you decided to, at some point, go after the boss. Such a risky move to take out Dominic Ruggiero. Did you really think that you had a shot at this?
Yeah, Gene, I do believe the senators still understand that there is a change coming to the Rhode Island Senate. And the issues that are facing us today, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, whether it be environment, Rhode Island has those issues, and they're even more magnified by the uncertainty coming now down from Washington that we're going to be seeing. The Rhode Island senators know we need an institution that's effective, and we're going to continue having that conversation as to how do we make sure the Senate is effective. The president has pledged that his health is going to be better, that he's going to be back in 2025. But the first extended absence the president had was in 2023, and then that continued into 2024. Probably maybe 2 months out of the 6 months of the session the president was in. That made an institution that couldn't work, and I could not sit there and quite frankly, not serve my constituents and work on the issues that I know we need to. The Senate needs to be functioning. It needs to be effective for me to be effective, and I believe that we need to make that change.
We're looking at the boss right there. Last time you were in with me, you sat there. President Ruggiero sat here. He was number 1. You were number 2. Where does this leave you? Because you lost. The senators went with him, and now you're out.
Yeah,
you're out.
Yeah, listen, my intention is to continue to being a senator for Cumberland and Lincoln. And again, I do believe there will be a change coming again to the Rhode Island Senate in some period of time, and I look forward to earning the respect of my colleagues again. I had the opportunity to serve as finance chairman. I loved that job. I had the opportunity to serve as majority leader. I love that job. I'm uniquely positioned in a way that I believe I can continue to be an effective leader in the chamber and really make sure that we can advance the Senate's priorities on those issues I talked about, and especially negotiating with the House and the governor.
Now, in October, he came out and endorsed your replacement. He wanted somebody else other than you, and you subsequently announced your bid to take him out. What went into your thinking? Because you were very tight with him. You guys had confidential talks. You were number 2. You were on his team. You're in his office. Right. So what went into that?
Well, as I think about what happened in the last session and what our effectiveness was, I had concerns in 2023. And then we were waiting for, we were assuming his health was going to be better. He'd be back in 24.
Right.
We got back into the 24 session, and unfortunately that was not the case, and he was out again.
Right.
And it made the Senate unable to have our effectiveness work. Right? We couldn't work on healthcare. Right. We couldn't work on education. We couldn't work on those issues because we weren't going to be successful with the House without a leader in the room that can negotiate with the Speaker, negotiate with the governor. And so I was in a very tough position as the number 2. And if I think any number 1 should want a number 2 that's willing to be honest with them and share with them, when it may be time to move on. Yeah. And I think this was the situation with the president. I did not ask him to move on at that time, but I did share with him my concerns about the effectiveness of the chamber. And I think as we went through the year, we saw that happening, right? There were Senate bills that were not passed. We worked, the Senate priority was around health care and around temporary caregivers insurance, making sure that people could have those benefits. Those packages and those bills did not come back from the House in the way in which we would be proud of. Right. We did not accomplish our goals. Less than half of those bills, I believe, we saw passed. The Senate was not being effective at doing its job. And so in that situation, I think, again, my responsibility is twofold. One, for my constituents, and two, I was elected as the leader of the Democrats in that chamber, and my job was to tell the president when I thought we were not accomplishing the objectives that we could. The president made his own decisions after that. I'm not responsible for those, but that was the path that he chose.
Your constituents also chose to back him over you. So what about this reasoned argument you just made? Your colleagues.
My colleagues in the Senate.
You said not your constituents. Your constituents elect you. Your colleagues in the Senate decided to back him over you.
Yeah.
So what happened to the reasoned argument you just made to me?
I have a tremendous amount of respect for all of my colleagues and the decision that they had to make.
Yeah.
President Ruggiero has been in the chamber for over 40 years. He has built relationships with a lot of senators over a long period of time. And I completely understand the difficulty between them making a decision around a Senate that's functioning and effective and is running, and concerns they have around personal relationships and loyalty that they have to the Senate president. I struggle with those same things. I've known the president, again, I have a deep respect for the president. We've built a personal and professional relationship over a decade. And so it wasn't easy for me either. And it wasn't easy for the other senators who were willing to publicly state that they were no longer willing to do that. But it was a very tough call. There are some of us that are ready to move on, and there's some that I think are still holding on, and I completely understand why they had to do that.
Was this listen, I'll take a shot. It's a long shot. But in doing so, I'll build my base when I go for it again. Was that the play here?
Yeah.
Do you still believe you're very much in play to someday become the Senate president?
Yeah.
Maybe next time around?
Ultimately, at the caucus that we had about a month or so ago, I was 2 votes short from where we walked in. I knew that was going to happen. I let our colleagues know that we were going to be 2 votes short. That shows you that the caucus was pretty narrowly divided. And again, I do believe I have a lot of the experience that can help me look for this opportunity in the future. For sure, I intend to run for the presidency again. But I think all of it roots around, we have to be focused on the issues that are facing Rhode Islanders. And I made sure that when I made this opportunity to run, I put out what we're going to work on. I said we were going to work on healthcare. I said we were going to work on education. I said we were going to work on environmental issues, making sure we have job training and apprenticeships to make sure we have strong labor forces. These are the issues that are important to Rhode Islanders and important to senators. And I believe that we can put together a team in the Senate that does that. And I really want to make sure that we can have a unified Senate that's functioning and gets our job done.
Just got about a minute and a half. Were you disappointed with the outcome from the last session? Because great progress was made in affordable housing. It's all they talk about up there. Chicago pushed that hard. Got what he wanted. It may backfire him in the end. There's a lot of towns pushing back on that.
That was the House priority. That was not the Senate's priority. And the Senate also had concerns with many of those pieces of legislation, specifically on accessory dwelling units, the ADUs. The Senate had reasonable restrictions on that related to the size of them and to making sure that the main home was owner-occupied. That was a big concern for senators, especially for senators from coastal communities in Narragansett and Newport and Little Compton and Tiverton.
Look at Johnston, too.
Right? Yeah. That was a big concern, that we don't want out-of-state investors coming in and buying up these properties. This is a perfect example, though, Gene, of where that legislation was pushed through the Senate without amendment. But the Senate's priorities on healthcare legislation, on temporary caregivers insurance, was completely watered down or not even taken up by the House. That is a perfect example of how the Senate has lost its negotiating power, has not been able to be as effective as it can be. And certainly the House has been very successful on that. I don't begrudge the House for being successful on that. That's their job. They're there to advocate for their positions. But the Senate can be a lot stronger, and we can work a lot better for the people of Rhode Island.
Okay, so as you go back now, not a member of the leadership team, but you still, that point shouldn't be lost. You have support. You came very close. And you're going to come back again. What's your top priority?
My number one priority going in again is going to be on healthcare. We started that last year. We know we have major issues related to healthcare, whether it be Medicaid. I'm very concerned about changes at the federal level on Medicaid. That is not only going to impact individuals in Rhode Island, but if we lose Medicaid funding, that means health insurance costs for small businesses, for individuals, for big business. Everybody goes up, and we got to be really cognizant about that. I also believe that we really need to be focused on making sure that we think about primary care when it comes to health care. If people can't get access to primary care, again, we're making sure that costs only go up. So we have a lot of work to do around our healthcare system. There's no silver bullets, but we really need to make sure that we continue to focus in that area.
You don't have to divulge personal conversations, but when you told the Senate president, I'm going up against you, it's over between the two of us, what did he say?
Yeah, he has not talked to me or had a conversation returned to me since March. So unfortunately, all of this played out behind the scenes, and what I heard, and that was not by my attempts. I've tried to talk with him since March when I made that first conversation. He's not been able to do that.
Politics is a rough game, but you're coming back for another bite at the apple. Senator Ryan Pearson, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gene.
Okay.